My name's Eric Welander and welcome back to my channel all about apps and gear in the Apple ecosystem. Today we're going to talk about the Philips Hue Dimmer Switch and if it's right for your home setup. But first, I need some espresso. That was exactly what I needed to get some energy for this video. So using Apple's HomeKit app on your phone is fantastic for adjusting things and setting scenes, and there's so much you can do there. But one of the problems is that going in and out of the HomeKit app or talking to Siri or talking to an Amazon Echo or a Google Home Assistant, those things it takes so much time and effort that sometimes it's just way faster to hit a button. You always hear about when you learn about how to use a computer that hotkeys are so fast, and learn what the keyboard shortcuts are on a Mac or an iPad to be able to do something quickly. And the same thing really applies to your home. It's way faster to turn on and off a light by hitting a button. And that's where something like the Hue Dimmer Switch can come in really handy. So I initially bought one of these last year, and then we had some Amazon gift cards over the holidays and ended up getting 2 more of these for our current apartment. So the buttons on the switch are pretty intuitive. There's just an on and off switch and then a bright and dark switches as well. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to feel what is what in the dark though. I mean, you can kind of feel around the edge of the switch, but it's not as obvious as the normal light switch. So when you first set up the Hue light switch, you assign it to a particular room in the Hue app, and then that switch will be able to control those Hue lights that are associated with that room in your home. So the light switch is battery powered, which means that it is going to be limited with life, but you just have a screw on the back and you can undo it and replace the battery. Philips says that the minimum battery lifespan is about 3 years of use, which I'd say is pretty good. But with that comes the ability to take it off of the switch plate and have it as a handheld remote. Maybe if you want to be watching a movie on the sofa or something, you can have this right there with you and do things like this while you're recording a video and the lights come on. There's this weird thing though in the Hue app where it tries to register multiple button presses so that multiple presses on the same button on the switch will trigger a different scene. I found this to not work very well and be kind of counterintuitive. The intervals at which it picks up multiple presses just don't really make sense. Now you can also use this switch with Apple's HomeKit. So you can use the button presses on this switch to trigger broader HomeKit scenes and events that don't just involve Philips Hue lights. This is really nice in concept, but is not as great as you might think on the surface. So when you first get the switch, you'll probably want to just set it up with the Philips Hue app in that whole system first, and then work on moving it to HomeKit. One of the key things you have to do though is go into the Philips Hue app and unregister the switch from being controlled with the whole Hue system, and then it will be able to be changed and modified in the HomeKit app. This isn't very intuitive, especially since once you do that, you'll see these alerts in the Hue app saying that you have this unregistered accessory, or don't you want to set up this switch? But unfortunately, moving these switches to HomeKit is not as ideal as you might think. For example, when the switch is registered with Philips Hue, it works as you would expect as a dimmer switch, meaning that the brighter and darker switch buttons will literally make the lights brighter or darker in the room that are Philips Hue lights. When you move it over to HomeKit though, it's just considered a 4-button panel. So if you want to make those dimmer switches actually behave that way, you'd have to go in and set up a bunch of HomeKit scenes that sort of, you hit one and it will dim the lights to a certain level, or you hit another and it will raise the brightness to a certain level. You can't do the same kind of dynamic moving the light values one way or another with those buttons, or at least I haven't figured out how to. If you have a solution for that, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. But that said, as a 4-button panel, it works out pretty well, and it is nice to be able to have that control for all kinds of other HomeKit accessories right from this one device. You don't have to go into your iPhone or your Apple Watch or any other Apple product to control your. But one of the advantages of that HomeKit setup is it does allow you to have almost like there's a more expensive Hue switch that's like a circle, and you can press the different buttons to trigger different scenes. And by converting these switches to HomeKit, you kind of get that functionality as long as you can make the scenes make sense with what the buttons are labeled. So installing the switch plate is pretty easy. You just put a couple of screws in the wall, and then you secure the bigger plate on top of that sort of wall mount, and then there's magnets that then allow the switch remote to be secured into the wall. And if for some reason you can't use screws on the wall, there's even sticky pads on the back of the plate that allow you to secure it that way. Of course, then you just need to be sure that the sticky pads are not gonna damage any paint or stuff like that. So it's up to you, but you have those two options. That said, if you're a very detail-oriented person about your home setup, it's very difficult to get these switches to mount exactly flush with the drywall or whatever you're mounting it to. So expect to either really fiddle with it or just be like me and screw it in and have a little bit of a gap and be okay with it. And if you end up having multiple of these switches, I highly recommend just putting some label tape on the back of each switch, and then you're not going around the house trying to figure out, okay, there's this loose switch, which room was it from? One other key thing to note about using this switch with HomeKit is that you still need a Philips Hue bridge in order to use this product. So if you don't currently own any Hue lights and you're thinking of just getting this as a cheap light switch to control other HomeKit products, don't do that because you'll still need the bridge. I think this is really ideal if you already have some Hue products, you want to control those and maybe some other things as well with HomeKit. So currently my wife and I rent this apartment we live in, and that means that we're not able to modify any of the electricals or switches or anything else that you might want to do in a smart home. And something like this Hue Dimmer Switch is a really great solution where we can just screw it into the wall, but we're not going in and modifying any of the existing electrical system. But I think if you are looking for something to install in an actual home, there are a variety of options that allow you to mount something into a switch and replace the switch in the wall, and I think that would end up being a better option if you can. That said, there are plenty of people like us currently who either don't have that ability in their current living situation or don't want to spend the time and effort to do that. And for that, I think you'll still be very happy with something like the Hue Dimmer Switch. Thanks again for watching this video. Give it a thumbs up down below if you liked it. Subscribe to this channel if you aren't already. Let me know in the comments below what you're using for home lighting switch setups, or if you have any questions, more questions about this Hue switch, and I'll see you in the next one.